Good morning, everybody. Eric here. Happy Thursday, the 24th of November. I'm going to give you a video comment on just the sector really quickly. Yeah, the pullback, we went from a consolidation at these highs to now what is a correction. Frankly, at the end of the day, I think it's not only normal, but it's a positive thing. And, I wasn't sold that we were necessarily going to see much more than sideways downward action and then another move. But it looks like, as we've seen, non-coincidentally, we've also had a rally in the dollar as well as a pullback in the equity markets. And so, the gold and silver moves are coming back, and they were ahead of themselves. And we saw a lot of sort of late pilers in there. So what I would say is I'll keep you monitored when I am getting a bit more aggressive. There are certain stocks that are on their 200-day moving averages, for example, that we're accumulating in elite and premium. There are some other very attractive names, but for the most part, I think you could be a little bit patient over the next day to 2 days to see kind of, where things exactly shake out. If we see a follow through on the stock market, movement down, and if that brings some of these down, that could certainly happen. But at the same time, we're also coming up on support for a lot of these things, like even the Pretium I said lock in the profits on the day before yesterday. That's coming to the 50-day moving average. There's a gap on that chart, like for example, in the 1025 area US, it's at 1253. So maybe we see that filled. Maybe this is the low right here. I am not worried about this correction, and I believe that after such a big move, it's very normal. I'll have more charts to provide soon, but I like to do that when it's sort of like, you see me get more aggressive when I'm pretty sure the lows are in or we're getting there or what to accumulate. But, this is fine. There's nothing wrong here. And in fact, the one thing that I would say absolutely I would do is hone in on adding to your physical silver positions. And, I've been doing that. You can do the physical, which is obviously great to have some nice physical silver holdings. And I've been, accumulating that for years, and many of you have as well. And the issue for the newer comers has been the premiums are just kind of out of this world. So what I've been doing is adding the PSLV, which is the Sprott ETF, and that ETF is, I think it trades around 815 US right now. And this is, this has got like a 2.5-3% discount to net asset value. So instead of paying 20 to 30% premiums for coins, this is a good way to accumulate physical silver. It's there, it's in the vaults, and then at some point, I believe the premiums on these ETFs will go up quite a bit when the market gets into that next heated stage. And there will be points where the premiums on the actual physical metals will have dips and they're closer together. And then I would swap those out if you want the physical. Nothing wrong with buying physical if you can find some decent deals, but they're, it's bloated out there. But physical silver is a very big focus of mine. And, I'm so confident that silver is going higher that, if you don't have much or have any, that would be the first thing that I would focus on grabbing more of. Gold as well, but gold is just gold's my safety. Gold's the safest investment in the world in this environment, in my opinion, and I've said very much. I'd like to see if it got a little bit cheaper to add. I mean, I'm fully invested in gold. I have been for a while. If it pulls back, to any more meaningful level, I certainly will buy more. And if you're light on gold, this is your chance to grab some physical. But the silver for me, for those of us that have a little bit more risk appetite, I would absolutely start to accumulate, and I would accumulate a good amount now. And if it goes lower, just get more and more aggressive. Because when silver goes and when gold goes again, they're going to go, and they're going to go hard and fast like they just did. And it's going to be even bigger when gold breaks those highs and silver breaks its recent highs. So that's that real quickly. And then I just want to address Giga metals. So Giga Metals, GIGA, is a nickel junior that we've covered here for, it's been just over a year since we took a position and covered Giga. Started out buying around 22 cents. Stock went as high as like 53 in towards the end of last year into the new year, and nickel crashed. And so the stock came, all the way back down into the mid-teens. A lot of people just were discouraged and left. In the premium model portfolio, during that time, we had gone from a 2% allocation it's a core non-gold silver part of our portfolio. And we essentially went from a 2% position initially to earlier on in the nickel a decline. I don't remember exactly when it was. We went to 3. And then it was either March or April, we were at 16, 17, 18 cents when I thought things were turning. I upped that to 4, which is our biggest allocation in that part of the portfolio. And we actually rarely have anything that's at 4. We only have like 1 at 5 in the gold bigger model. Those are bigger companies. So it was one of our biggest positions. And then I put an update out for you guys on the, on this e-letter list on the September 11th, excuse me. And I essentially said you could look at it September 11th. It ended up being good timing for those of you that were waiting for an update. And, I went through a little bit of a summary, but then I said, the stock was halted that morning, and the U.S. symbol was trading, and it was actually, I sold another 1% so we sold 2% of the 4%. In the model portfolio. The first one was much cheaper because we bought it officially in like March, April at like 17 cents. And we had to buy up to like 25, but most of that stock, the cheap stock, was bought between 16 and 22 or something. And so we had this, triple, more than a triple. And I said, sell 1% above 55. And so it was right before it went to like 80. So I call it a 60-cent exit-ish. Took a lot of our principal risk out. And then the rest of it, call it a 25-cent cost average for the model portfolio. Some people got in later in the 30s or even in the 40s. But I addressed that in that email. And so then we sold the second piece that morning of the 11th. And we did it mainly early through the U.S. ticker at $1.30, which is the equivalent of, call it almost $1.70. Let's say it's 160 Canadian, but it was looking like it was opening up lower, which it did. But then it ended up right from the open. It skyrocketed that day. And I'm just going to pull this up for you guys. So you should have had this information and then been prepared on that open on the 11th. It opened at 89 and it closed at $1.65 on massive volume. So hopefully somewhere in that level of a dollar plus, call it, to $1.50, you were able to take some off. We kept 2%, so half of the position, which basically we have a negative cost on. But what I want to talk about is a couple things. I mentioned in the email on the 11th that some of the buying that we were doing in March and April, 10x on that, 5x on the rest, for those even buying back in the day. And then I said the recent run was due to Elon Musk encouraging low carbon production of nickel in North America, that they would buy it all essentially. Today, the massive move comes from press reports that the two companies are in talks and that this is not news coming from Giga, FYI, which is what the exchange is asking them about, I'm sure, which is why they were halted that morning. If it is actually news, this is what I said, if it's actual news, I'd be surprised because the company is not the type to announce an in-talks press release with the biggest prospect in the world for a quick run in the share price. Giga is and has played the long game and does it right. But I think it unwise not to take money off the table here, even if free readers back in the day bought it around 40 and didn't add more on the pullbacks in nickel. Let's hope the rumor momentum keeps rolling, but these things have a way of vanishing quickly if no deal is announced, which I think realistically is premature at this point. So what ended up happening there is this is kind of how it played out. That day we traded 13 million shares up to, like just under 10 million shares to the 165 close. The next day, 13 million shares up to 244. The day after that, 7 million shares with a low of $1.50 and a high of 208. And then that day on the 15th, another 7 million share day where we went from 149 to 208. And then there was one more day where we were $1.60 to $2, all on big volume. And then we saw this big pullback. So we were already set. You had time on the 11th email to get prepared well ahead and well into those runs with commentary that all I was doing is really just saying, hey, this has always been our top nickel play, but I'm a little skeptical with this article stuff coming out that there's a deal there. And in fact, right after I sent that out, there was a comment then from the president who had mentioned essentially, look, if there was imminent material news, we'd have it out for you. But we've been talking to all the car companies for a long time. That's what they're doing. That's what they're supposed to be doing. So then, where the drama comes in is over that weekend, which was I think last weekend. There was one writer who started so first of all, two things happened. One was lots of insider selling had occurred that week into the run. And this article that came out that a bunch of people sent me, and I forget the name of the actual group, but it's only this one website, and it's an inference of some very nefarious activities. Essentially, that this writer from Reuters was like there's inferences. There's not an actual accusation, but it's essentially saying there might have been a bag of cash from, particularly the person who is the target of this potentially is the chairman of Giga, sold, basically 95% of the stock. So not just his options, but there's an inference in the article about why would he exercise 1.5 million options at 8 cents in early September when the stock wasn't even liquid, if he didn't have knowledge of this stuff coming out or whatever. It was actually because if the guy did his homework, the options were expiring, okay? So on the one hand, you have situations where things like that, you need to have all the facts. On the other hand, if I'm the CEO of a company like Giga and my chairman, look, a lot of these board of directors on small companies, any compensation that they're really going to get, they don't get paid a salary. So it's really option based, And so if somebody has a bunch of cheap options and they're going to cash in on some of that because it's all of a sudden up, 10x out of nowhere, which we saw, I think it was 2 directors, 1 employee, and 1 consultant, which is Martin Vidra, who's the president, but he's not a director, and he's actually not even an actual employee. I think he's a consultant to the company. But in any event, if I'm the CEO of the company and then the chairman sells not only all of his options, but all of his stock that he had for a long time as well, I think he sold 95% of it, I'd be fucking furious. And that's only because and he did nothing illegal. There's nothing illegal there unless this guy who's speculating that some backdoor deal happened with Reuters because of a few of these things that were picked up on. It was a really nice mystery novel write-up, but there's no facts to it. And Martin Vidra even sold some into it because this is a guy that I think, he's at the top. He's a very, very seasoned executive. And he had options that he converted and sold some into as part of his compensation package. I have no problem with that. There was a woman, Leslie, who I think has worked for Mark Jarvis, the CEO, for almost 20 years, who had 50 or 100,000 options she sold. Good for her. If I was Mark, I would have said, Leslie, take advantage of this. Go buy a new car, go do something. Exercise your options, If you have somebody in an admin position who could take advantage of it, great. And there was one other board member sold a little bit of his options. Mark Jarvis, the CEO, didn't do a thing, and he owns the biggest percentage of the company. So I think that says a lot, and that's always why I backed Giga and that's why I said that they do things the right way. But at the end of the day, here's the situation. The situation is that this particular article I just wanted to talk about that got people all up in arms and everything else. The insider selling, when you see that much selling, especially from the chairman, it raises questions, right? But I think probably what ended up happening with him is he saw that this stuff starts coming out and hitting the press and Goldman Mail and Reuters and whatever else, and he was opportunistic and he dumped it. If I was Giga CEO, would I've liked him to see dump 95% of his position? Heck no. But he didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing illegal about that. It's just that he was aggressive in saying, I'm up, millions of dollars, I'm going to sell some. And he ended up selling a lot. He still had like $1 million worth of stock. So, anyway, the other people that did do any selling were just, there were small amounts of options, which are part of the compensation packages of these guys and groups and girls. And Leslie, I'm not too worried about that. I think there was another inference here I wanted to deal with, other than, when these things happen, guys, what in my experience with the case is like, you have to do your homework. You have to also, when I read that article, I was like, wow. And my mind goes to this like, uh-oh. And then I'm looking at it closer. I talked to a couple people and I'm just like, you know what? When you're talking about this gremlins behind every bush, as well as like, bag of cash in an alley, that's what this guy is basically saying happened with the Reuters and the other journalists that picked this up, and that this was coordinated. Martin Vidra has one of the best reputations in the business in the battery metals with car manufacturers. His job is to go out and talk with companies like Tesla. They've been talking to every car company for over a year. I mean, I've known that. This is what they're supposed to be doing, to try to get somebody to sign on to develop the Turnigan project and lock in long-term contracts. I mean, I even heard that there was a big Asian conference with the battery metals. Maybe it was like 9 months ago, but there people saw very high level people at very high big companies, starting with the letter T, more than one, that are car companies, with a guy like Martin, who's basically connected in the industry, and he's a Giga representative. So people can put two and two together, and then maybe they hear something else and they put this story out. I mean, and the stock went bananas. And the good news is it's got a lot more eyeballs on it. The bad news is that it's come off quite a bit, and we did have this sort of like little bit of conspiracy around what's what. But I just wanted to give my opinion and say that I don't think anything was done illegally. I don't think that it's very comforting. Mark Jarvis didn't even touch the market. The little bit that Martin Vidra did, it's a part of his option package, and he took advantage of it. The other small sales by the long-term employee and the director, not a big deal whatsoever. The chairman, look, if I was the board or Mark, I would be expecting him, whether it's now or sometime soon in the future, especially if the stock goes lower, to buy that stock back and send a message that he is in this for the long term, because optically it does not look good. But at the same time, the asset's the asset. There's not many of these out there like this. Tesla, who wants clean carbon nickel from a friendly source, they've got options, a few in Canada, Australia, and Turnigan is one of them. And I'm still holding that core position now we have for free. And I'm waiting on that, whether it happens fast or it happens slow. This was always a situation where when it really catches on with nickel and goes and, turns on fire, this is going to be like a possible 50 bagger. And now we can hold that for free. So hopefully some of you acted on the 11th, and I just wanted to give some thoughts on some of this stuff that came out. Have a good day.